hell of a thing happened. So Anderson Cooper thought he was going to one-up Senator Nina Turner in what, in my opinion, turned out to be a massive misfire by Anderson Cooper. And I'm significantly disappointed in his rhetoric, but I'm going to give you the twists and turns. Let me first take you to the segment. Here it is.
When they are in fact suffering, and I am young enough to remember, colleagues, when Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib and also Congresswoman Cori Bush called for a ceasefire very early on, they were called abhorrent. Now, fast forward to all of these bodies laying in the wake and people who are living through this every single day.
So by the way, there's also been slaughter in Israel.
I was going to say,
so there's a lot of pain on both sides.
No, I'm not.
I'm not lecture on the problem, but I'm talking about the politics of this tonight. What to you would be a victory, as somebody was calling for this uncommitted vote? What to you would be a victory tonight to get that message across?
I'm going to go to Senator Turner's response in just a moment, but let me just say this in all due respect to Anderson Cooper. Anderson Cooper, you said that she should not lecture you. It's a panel discussion. Everybody is there to talk. There are producers that tell people when to wrap up. You're literally saying don't talk on a talk show. It's quite insane to me. And then the commentary of Senator Turner was simply about the humanitarian dynamics associated with the slaughter that we see. And you talked about the pain on both sides. I'm going to come back to that in just a moment, Anderson. But here's Senator Turner's response.
I'm not denying that pain. All I'm saying that at a certain point after October the 7th, it becomes clear. I mean, you have a right-wing prime minister.
Right. We don't need to debate the issue.
But you understand what I'm saying? I'm not denying anybody's pain. What I am saying is that this president and our country has the power to say to Netanyahu, we need a permanent ceasefire. The only time hostages,
if I can push back here,
wait, one more point. The only time hostages were released is when we had that brief ceasefire. That is another reason why we need.
Okay. All right. So you see the entanglement happening here, right? Now, this is going to be an interesting saga. Once again, I want to remind you, Anderson Cooper said that there's pain on both sides. You see, the reason why Senator Nina Turner has to remind them of the pain and the suffering of the Palestinians is because the pain and the suffering of Israelis is typically, their humanity is typically assumed. You have to proclaim the humanity in many conversations of the Palestinians. And there is no war between Israeli and Palestinians. And the Palestinians that they are talking about, that they are killing in Gaza, have the average age of 19.2 years of age. 40+% of the population of Palestinians in Gaza, 14 years of age and under. They do not have significant political, international, economic, etc. ties. They don't have that. They have voices like Senator Nina Turner, myself, Jordan Yule, and a few others. So Senator Turner was on my radio program this morning and responded as well. Here it is.
Senator Turner, how did you not slap everybody on that damn panel? I don't. Let me say this to you, sister. I was mad. I said, "What the hell?" It was one of those. You know what it was? It was equivocation. It was equivocation.
Yes.
It was Donald Trump in a different formation saying there are good people on both sides here.
That's right. That's right, Dr. Richey. And to get people, I mean, I was calling on Black Jesus with the sandals.
I know you. I know.
You know, because it's so hard. And I want our listeners to understand some of the microaggressions that happen when, you're a Black woman or a Black person trying to get a point across. And now, I'm being told not to lecture when all I simply was trying to do, I was there to talk about.
On a talk show, you're being told not to talk.
That's Richey. I love how you break that down. But there's some real realities, and we know that this is both complicated, but then it's not complicated. And when I say It's complicated. We know that there are thousands of years worth of history in the Middle East. Duly noted. What's not complicated is that at a certain point, people who just love humanity,
that's right,
who care about Palestinian babies, who care about Israeli babies, who care about humanity, have got to come together and say, we got to put a stop to this. And then we have to find a permanent way to have, to build, to create, because the peace is just not going to happen through osmosis. We're going to have to make it happen. And so many of the world's leaders have said we need a permanent ceasefire. Even Dr. Richey, you know, the bishops of the AME Church, the African Methodist Episcopal Church, they came out really strong. We know the history of that church with Richard Allen. I believe it was either in the 1700s or the 1800s that church was created because Black people could not worship.
That's right.
Worship in the white Methodist Episcopal Church. I mean, there's a story about how Black parishioners were on their knees praying, and the white folks in the church came and pulled them up off their knees in the church. So I encourage our listeners to go and read that history. But fast forwarding to today, the bishops of the AME Church have called out the state of Israel, and it is the right-wing government. I want to be very clear. It is the Netanyahu government that is creating this. And what really got to me, Doc, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say, is just the total dismissal of the pain that Palestinian people are feeling. The fact that 30,000 people have been killed, and that's only what they can find in terms of reports. I'm sure it's more than that.
Yeah.
And that the people who are alive, though, are living through famine. They can't get health care. Babies are being born. People are undergoing surgeries without anesthesia. Can you imagine what that feels like on an everyday basis? So I always said to my colleagues, we can sit up here and be cool, calm, and collected and talk about a horse race and center President Biden and former President Donald J. Trump. I was simply centering the people closest to the pain. And that is what the Listen to Michigan campaign was and is all about.
That's correct. Now, to Anderson Cooper, you know, Anderson, I think you are a good man. I am disappointed in your current statement, but I do believe you have a good heart. I remember a few years ago, Mr. Cooper, you said this.
That were very fine people on both sides.
Fine people on both sides, which is a rather broad-minded interpretation, which is not true. That's certainly not in the video you saw, which was the demonstration from Friday night. Not according to a journalist who was there in the crowds, who told us point blank that what you saw there was exactly what it looked like. Neo-Nazis, other white supremacists marching, spewing hate. The White House initially defended the president's remarks, but later the president gave a more full-throated statement, saying in part, racism is evil, and those who cause violence in its name are criminals and thugs, including the KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and other hate groups that are repugnant to everything we hold dear as Americans. What's interesting, though, was that this was not the president's first instinct, which was to avoid a full-throated condemnation of what seemed plain to see. Something similar played out on the campaign trail when candidate Trump was asked about racist remarks by David Duke, a figure Citizen Trump had been commenting on and even disavowing since 1991.
Anderson, you're a smart man. Equivocation is equivocation. In your response to Senator Turner, to remind Senator Turner to, one, not lecture you, and two, there's pain on both sides here. Well, does it not seem quite similar to equivocation that happened from the White House during your coverage of Donald Trump? Let me make it plain to you, Anderson. When you have children being bombed by an active military supported by the United States of America, military led by Benjamin Netanyahu, over 80% of Israelis believe that Netanyahu is to blame for security failures. That's in polling data. 73% of them would like him to resign. That is recent polling data. Israelis don't want Netanyahu in charge. Okay? Now, children being bombed, killed, eliminated. By proxy, you have this Hamas argument. So Netanyahu says, no, we have to do this because Hamas is hiding in Gaza. They're using Palestinians as human shields. We have no choice. If Hamas was hiding in Israel, I guarantee you Netanyahu would not indiscriminately kill Israelis in order to find Hamas. That's all you need to know to understand that there is a devaluing of human life inside of this conflict. And Nina Turner was reminding everyone of their greater nature on that panel. Jordan, thoughts here?
Yeah, think about the role CNN is playing here in shaping people's understanding and shaping the discussion of this issue. So Nina Turner, from what I can tell, was the only progressive voice on that panel, completely lopsided, including Bakari Sellers, who, while they're talking about Rashida Tlaib, runs a PAC that received over $1 million from a right-wing mega donor who helps fund AIPAC. Bakari Sellers has long ties to AIPAC, and the goal of that PAC is to unseat Rashida Tlaib. So the fact that he's there without disclosing that or them providing that context when they're talking about people like her is unethical. But as she's talking about this, they all rush to jump down her throat. They're talking about the vote uncommitted push in Michigan. That is important context for why people were doing that.
That's right.
You need to include that in the discussion. The fact that she couldn't even get that out without panelists, not even just the moderator, but other panelists trying to silence her shows just how skewed the discussion is in that at that level in the media. And that doesn't represent the views of a majority of Americans. How you choose to vote in the primary does not necessarily reflect your view on a ceasefire. And a majority of the country want a ceasefire. And you see in communities like Dearborn, my God, it was just overwhelming how many people are upset with Biden on that.
Yep.
And they're going into this election cycle taking that for granted, just assuming people will just suck it up and deal with it when their friends or relatives or just other people are being massacred. And just yesterday, the IDF, or last night, the IDF fired on hundreds and hundreds of people who were trying to get aid, killing over 100 of them. That is a cold-blooded massacre. And the fact that we have to equivocate, say, oh, they're on both sides, they're suffering on both sides. Look, I'm sorry, but that only happened on October 7th. To that size and scale, that was one day. There might be spats here and there, but if you want to talk about size and scale, it has been every single day in Gaza by the IDF with the US's support. And that's what people are upset about. That's why people voted uncommitted, and that she can't even provide that context is disgusting.
So well said, dear brother.